Have you seen the movie I Am Legend? Did it make you wonder what it would be like to be alone? I think I would get really bored. From evacuated cities to Wild West ghost towns, here's 10 abandoned cities. Number 10, Plymouth Montserrat. There are many reasons for a place to be abandoned, but what some people don't expect is a capital city of a nation to be abandoned very suddenly. Yet that's exactly what happened in Plymouth Montserrat, located in the West Indies. This location was fine for many years, but then in 1995, it was revealed that a nearby volcano was more than likely going to erupt, thus putting the entire city in danger and causing a mass evacuation. 2 years later, that prediction came true as Soufriere Hills volcano blew its top, covering Plymouth in a thick layer of ash, and it darkened the sky almost completely. Even though Plymouth is completely abandoned, it is still classified as the capital, and therefore is the world's only ghost town capital of any political territory. And technically speaking, you can go see Plymouth today. However, the volcano in question is still active, so it can still erupt and cause mayhem. In the past, tourists could easily spy the roofs or the top floors of buildings, partially buried in ash. But as time goes on, more of Plymouth's remains get covered. Still, many people are lured by the apocalyptic-looking scene, as well as the chance to see a volcano in action. So, the tours that can be taken by the island will vary based on the readings of the volcano. If it's deemed too active, then you'll have to settle for a boat tour. If it's not too active, you can go on the island and see the abandoned capital. Number 9, Hashima Island, Japan. You'll find this small island about 9 miles off Nagasaki. Hashima Island, also known as Battleship Island due to its shape. During a massive coal boom, the Mitsubishi Group, an assembly of companies servicing various industries but commonly known today for their automotives, began buying coal mines in the late 19th century to supply fuel for the country's growing fleet of ships. They began underwater mining on the island, supplying lots of jobs. The island was full of life. Over 5,000 people called it home. But in 1974, the coal mines started depleting, and the island's biggest industry was lost. Everyone who lived there left the island in search of better opportunities. The island was essentially 100% abandoned. Hashima Island went ignored for nearly 3 decades, 30 years. Concrete walls crumbled and flora flourished. Eventually, this led it to be a tourist attraction, and then UNESCO World Heritage declared it a site in 2015, thus preserving a very interesting piece of Japan's history. Number 8, Wittenoom, Australia. Wittenoom in Australia had to be abandoned for a very good reason, for the safety of those who lived there. At one time, Wittenoom was a place where you could mine for blue asbestos, a major building material in the country during the time period. This went on for decades, and as such, the town grew and grew, which led to more and more problems, as you might expect. Because, as we all know these days, asbestos is bad. The people that lived there started to get sick, very sick, and this led to the mine closing in 1966, with most of the residents moving away, turning the place into a ghost town. Wittenoom was officially closed in 2007, and the Australian government took steps to limit access to the former mining town and removed it from all official maps just to help make sure that it wasn't stumbled upon and explored by those who don't know its history. There are still some curious tourists and thrill seekers that try and go there. They say a short visit won't hurt, but yes it will. Asbestos fibers are still found in the topsoil and air around Wittenoom, making it dangerous to spend too much time in the town. Thus, again, why the government wants to make sure no one really knows where it is, so they don't get sick because of the area. Number 7, Kolmanskop. Kolmanskop, located in Namibia, Africa, was founded by Germans in the early 1900s, who found that the area was rich in diamonds. So they set up camp and mined them, bringing lots of people to the area with the promise of potentially striking it rich. And they did. They were pretty much picking up diamonds off the floor. But German authorities wanted control and eventually declared the site a forbidden zone. By the 1940s, the diamonds were pretty much gone anyway, and people started to leave. This was somewhat tragic, as during the 4 decades of life, the town had become rather large. It had a hospital, a power station, a school, a theater and sport hall, a casino, an ice factory, and the first X-ray station in the Southern Hemisphere. But once the diamonds were gone, they abandoned it like it was nothing. But that's not the end of the story. Kolmanskop was next to the Namib Desert, and when people left, the desert sands moved in, literally. Now the buildings in Kolmanskop are either broken or filled several feet high with sand, giving it a true ghost town look as well as being one overrun by nature. Which brings the town to right now, where Kolmanskop is a tourist destination. Visitors can book a 1-hour tour out of a neighboring city. They'll be able to see haunting ruins of residents' once impressive homes and businesses, the restored mine captain's home, butcher shop, gym, and Skittle Alley. You do need a permit to visit, though. Number 6, Ruby, Arizona. Ruby, Arizona, at one time was just another Wild West town, meaning that in the beginning of its life, it had a mine that was full of gold, silver, lead, and more, which obviously drew a lot of people to it. But eventually, it became a place of crime and home of the Ruby murders that took place all around the town. The first incident occurred in February 1920 when bandits robbed and killed the 2 owners of the Ruby Mercantile. A second attack happened in April 1921 when bandits robbed and killed the store's new owners. 2 of the bandits were arrested for the crime, but they briefly escaped custody in July 1922 after killing another 2 men, who were later caught after they were found bragging about what they did. So clearly not the smartest bad guys ever. The mines were closed in 1940, and Ruby was abandoned. But in a twist, the place is one of the most preserved Wild West towns in the United States due to its location. The place is on private land and remains untouched outside of those who pay a fee to visit it. Number 5, North Brother Island. There are many islands in the world that are deemed protected for one reason or another. In the case of North Brother Island, which is just off the coast of New York, it is now a bird sanctuary, which means that no one is allowed to come there because of the wildlife. However, there was a time when it was very much inhabited, and its history was a little sketchy at times. Ironically, the island wasn't populated until 1885, when Riverside Hospital was moved there. The intention of the place was to house and treat smallpox victims in isolation so that the disease couldn't spread, a very popular practice in the 1800s for various illnesses and diseases. Later on, the hospital became a more general service place, treating other diseases and patients, which included the infamous Typhoid Mary. She remained at the hospital until she died in 1938. The hospital was closed in 1942, but the buildings were used as veteran housing and other activities, ones that resulted in the abuse and deaths of many. Thus, the place was officially abandoned, and nature took its course over the years until it became the sanctuary that it is now. Though many would note that the abandonment is also in part due to the spirits that are said to reside there. Number 4, Pripyat, Ukraine. I'm sure you've heard of Chernobyl and the disaster that happened there, but you may not know that the disaster happened in the city of Pripyat. Pripyat was once a beautiful, vibrant place. 50,000 people once called it home. The town itself was built for the personnel that worked on the power plant less than 3 kilometers away. Then the terrible thing happened, forcing the entire city to evacuate. The disaster happened in 1986, a catastrophic nuclear explosion. Radiation poured. It was extremely damaging to the world. Thousands of people died due to long-term radiation left in the air. Today, a chilling ghost town, its buildings bear witness to the hasty departure. Amidst the surrounding decay, decades of the catastrophe, nature reclaims the town. Trees grow through broken windows, and grass pushes up through the cracks in the roads. Due to the immediate impact of the area, the town had to be warded off to ensure that no one returned. Over the many years since, the town has slowly started to open up, and there are even tours that can be done in the safe zones of the area. When you go to Pripyat now, you'll see that nature has taken over in the 30-plus years since the disaster. Before you go, remember that the area is still dangerous, and there's plenty of rules you must follow. Visitors must sign a disclaimer promising not to touch anything or to sit on the ground. Don't want to get contaminated. Before they leave, they get a body scan. If it beeps a warning, the person will be swept of any radioactive dust before being permitted to leave. Number 3, Krakow, Italy. Even though the people of Krakow, Italy have been gone for a long time, the majesty of this medieval hill town remains. Located in Italy's boot, the once thriving village stands on a tall cliff overlooking the river valley below. You may recognize Krakow from movies like The Passion of the Christ, Saving Grace, and Mission Impossible. Defensively, the town's builders got everything right, but enemy attacks weren't the reason this unique place is now a ghost town. The village actually survived several occupations, plunderers, and some substantial drama brought on by the unification of Italy. Then the plague arrived in the mid-1600s, taking out hundreds of the residents. Despite the Black Death, it survived. By 1815, it was even big enough to divide into 2 districts. Regardless of its strengths, Krakow found itself in a pickle regarding its location. While its perch atop a hill kept most dangers away, exposure to the elements is what effectively brought down the village. Earthquakes, floods, landslides. Once residents began leaving because of these natural disasters, things were never quite the same. Though nobody lives there anymore, many people still go to see the architecture and the history. Number 2, Landia. To be fair, as of 2017, Landia is very much populated by people. However, for the longest time, it wasn't. As the name indicates, it has a connection to the very famous Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a mastermind of efficiency. It wasn't so much what he invented, it was how he made things better. His successes in streamlining auto production, the man who helped automobiles, the travel option for millions, and small foray into the air travel gave him a well-deserved confidence. That confidence would prove to be his downfall in Brazil. His company town startup, named Landia, failed to bring the vast amounts of rubber he had expected. His cars needed tires, and in the interest of lowering costs, Ford decided to create his own rubber production plant in the Amazon. He struck a deal with the government of Brazil to get a piece of land on the banks of Rio in exchange for 9% share in the profits generated. Henry didn't really do his research into the area's culture, though, and instead relied on his inclinations to pick a location, hire employees, and establish rules for the town. Unfortunately, Ford was not a Brazilian, a geologist, nor a qualified mayor. 6 years and $200 million later, Ford finally closed the town with really nothing to show for it. Landia was such a bust, it was arguably the most expensive mistake of Henry Ford's career. The city was abandoned in 1934, and very few people lived in it up until recently. Number 1, Centralia, Pennsylvania. Not all abandoned towns mean to end up that way. Sometimes, accidents happen. This perfectly describes Centralia, Pennsylvania in 1962. A while ago, the small town of Centralia, Pennsylvania was busy, filled with shops, residents, and a brisk mining business. Coal from local mines fueled its homes and its economy. About 1,200 people worked, played, and lived as neighbors. Today couldn't be more different. Centralia's streets are abandoned, most of its buildings are gone, and smoke suffocates the air. Beautiful neighborhoods are now a trampled playground for gawkers and would-be ghost hunters. Graffiti covers the highways where a comfortable town once stood. The place has turned into a ghost town. The cause was something that's still happening beneath Centralia's empty streets, a mine fire that's been burning for over 50 years. The town was trying to burn away their local landfill. However, when they did that, part of the fire went straight into the town's coal mines through a secret hole they didn't know about. The result was the devastation of a community and the evacuation and impoverishment of the people that called it home. As of right now, the town only has a handful of people living in it due to the fires that are still burning underneath. Fires that will continue to burn until there is no more coal left in the mines. As such, Centralia will never be full of people again until those fires stop. Fun fact, while the environment of the movie Silent Hill seems as though it could only exist in nightmares, it was actually filmed in Centralia. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these abandoned cities? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!